Hello everyone. This is my first Facebook Live inside the Mastermind, and I want to talk to you about benchmarking. And there are several things I want to tell you about benchmarking that I hope will be useful for you for your next salary negotiation. So whenever you're thinking about your next salary, or even when you're negotiating with a client over a contract, the range of negotiation is somewhere between the least you're willing to accept. And if you're negotiating a salary, normally that would be, for example, your current salary, and the maximum amount your client or your potential future employer is able to pay. And normally it will be somewhere between that and not just where they're able to pay, but where they're willing to pay for that current position. And sometimes it's a little bit hard to figure out what amount you should be asking for, because maybe you've been out of the job market for a while, or you have a very specialized skill set that it's not easy to say exactly how much that job pays, because there's not a kind of very liquid market in those jobs. So I wanted to give you a few examples of where you can look for benchmarks. So a benchmark helps you figure out kind of how much am I worth in the market, but it also helps you to signal to your client, hey, this is how much I'm worth. And that worth can be much more than your current salary. So this is where benchmarks can be very, very helpful. So a few examples of where you can look for salary benchmarks. The easiest one is something like salary.com. Bring them on camera. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm getting messages from Facebook, so I didn't know what it meant. But anyways, the easiest one to benchmark with is something like salary.com or glassdoor.com. In Brazil, I think there's one that's called something like Happy Monday. So depending on what country you're in, you're going to have to look for different websites where you can look up your type of position, the location you're in, your years of experience, and it will tell you more or less what's the average salary in the market. And then you can kind of figure out, do you want to ask more than that because you have some extra skills that you can sell, or how much are you willing to go below that market price? And maybe your salary is already above market, so the market might not be as useful for your negotiation. The other options that you have is asking your network. So you can ask friends or colleagues, maybe not in your company, but in other spaces that you interact. Maybe they're groups of people that you meet with on a professional basis. Maybe they're former colleagues. So just say, for someone of my level of experience, and me as a person, what I'm capable of, how much should I be paid in a future job that I might be applying for? Or have you hired someone of similar skill set? How much were you hiring for? So this is another one that you can find out throughout your network. I've written down a few notes, so I'm going to share some of these with you. Also, if you went to a big school that has a very strong career services center, they often will have benchmarks about how much the alumni of the schools are getting paid in different industries. So I was fortunate enough to go to the Wharton School. They have a very strong career services department, so I can reach out to them and say, hey, how much on average do alumni of Wharton get paid within a marketing role 10 years out? And they collect a lot of these data, so it's an easy one to access if your school collects that kind of data. And they'll be happy to help you find out more information and sometimes even discuss some negotiation strategies. Other things you can do is you can look at actual postings. So look up job postings in sites like monster.com or Indeed or maybe even LinkedIn and see what are the rates that different companies are offering. A lot of employers will not communicate that, but some of them will. A third or fourth, I don't know which number we're on, you can also try to apply for jobs and see what type of salaries they're offering. And the last option that I would suggest you to do is also contact recruiters. And recruiters, their interest is to place candidates in jobs, and they get paid accordingly. And if you get paid more, they get paid more as their reference fee. So reach out to recruiters in your industry and ask them, if I'm looking for this kind of job, what type of salaries should I be looking at? And how can I position my skill set better to indicate that I'm at the higher end of this range? So these are some ways to use benchmarking. Sometimes you don't have that much information because maybe your position is very specialized, or there are not a lot of those kind of jobs available in the market. So I can give you a very specific example. A few years ago, one of the car sharing companies contacted me for a general manager position. And I haven't been doing these kind of jobs before. I'm an entrepreneur, so my salary right now is zero. You know, everything I make in my business goes back into my business, so I can't use my current salary as a negotiation leverage. So I wasn't sure kind of what type of salary to expect and how to negotiate. What I did was I had a friend who was working for a competitor of this company at a similar general manager role. So I called him up and I said, hey, you know, what should I be expecting? What are the ranges for this kind of role? How do the salaries look like? How do the performance bonuses look like? Are there any other benefits that I should be looking at? And he was very nice and kind to share some of this information with me. And, you know, surprisingly, actually, whenever this company, we had the conversation about salary, they were very upfront. And they gave a very big range and very generous compensation package, because in their particular case, they were, you know, they weren't trying to negotiate candidates down. They were trying to get really good people and pay them, you know, an amount that will make these people happy and wanting to come and join and start producing. So not all employers are looking to negotiate you down. And had I just thrown a number at them first, I would have negotiated myself down by sharing that number. So, and funny enough, the number my friend gave, although it sounded like a great number to me, it was lower than what they were suggesting. So be very careful on how you communicate your expectations and when you communicate those expectations. And the same thing with clients. A lot of times you don't really know what clients are going to pay. You know, now as I'm a consultant, I work with corporate clients, so sometimes you don't know how much they are willing to pay for a certain service, and it's a lot more ambiguous than jobs because there's like infinite amount of types of services and engagements. There are also very different types of competitors that provide these kind of services. So what I've been doing in this space for benchmarking, two things. One thing is ask friends or colleagues or other professional contacts, how much have they paid in the past for similar training services that they've hired? And the other side, I would ask people that I'm friendly with in the industry and say, how much do you charge for a webinar or for a workshop, for a training program? And normally I would get a really big range of options because it really depends on so many factors. So what I would do is I would try to figure out, you know, do I want to be in the top of the range or maybe in the middle of the range? I definitely don't want to be in the bottom of the range. So I would discard the lower end options and come up with some sort of number that makes sense within that range. And then I would use all the information and details to kind of justify why my service is great and is going to add a lot of value to them. And you should be doing that. You know, most of you, I think, will be trying to negotiate salaries. So try to find out what is the number that makes sense, and then list all the skills, the capabilities you're going to bring to this company, how you're going to add a lot of value if they hire you. But first start with this number, this benchmark, so that you make sure that you don't underprice yourself in the market. And if you're trying to figure out some of these skills and what do you bring to the table, if you go to my website, to miriamgrobman.com/credibility, and you haven't done this already, you download my ebook, and in this ebook, at the last few pages, you have this worksheet, your credibility worksheet, where you can list all the different skill sets and different knowledges that you bring to the table to help you kind of fill in the details in your negotiation strategy. So this is my few minutes on benchmarking. Feel free to ask me any questions. I'm happy to answer them in the group, or if you want to send me some private message, if it's something very sensitive, feel free to do that as well. But if we discuss in the group, it always helps other people to think about their own negotiation strategies. So I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to continue this discussion about benchmarking. And I see some people are on the live. Let me know if you have any questions as well. I'll wait for a couple of seconds on the line, see if anyone wants to ask anything. All right, it seems like there are no questions, so let's discuss in the group.